Hey everyone, Rich Munroe here with BNB Investing Group. Thanks for jumping on with us this week. I have a friend of mine, Andrew Bate, that's going to join us with Safely. We're going to talk all about his company and how they can help short-term rental hosts and short-term rental managers kind of run a seamless business. And so, BNB Investing Group helps new investors kind of navigate existing investors as well navigate through the different models and the way that we can do short-term rentals, whether you're buying properties to host guests in, or if you're doing leasing strategies, or if you're managing for other investors. And so we like to kind of explore a lot of different service providers that kind of help make things work for us, and that's what we have going on this week. So thanks again for jumping on. Shoot a yes in the comments for me, please, if you can hear us okay. And then also feel free to throw any questions in the comments as well. We'll try to get to some of those towards the end. So, Andrew, thanks so much for jumping on. Why don't you
Thank
tell
you,
us a little bit
Rich.
about yourself?
Sure. My name is Andrew Bate. I live in Midtown Atlanta. Our company, Safely, is based in Midtown Atlanta. And at Safely, our whole mission is to help homeowners, investors, the people whose homes they manage, help them feel comfortable with the internet strangers that come into their house when they rent on Airbnb, Verbo, Booking.com. And so we built a program where you can feel comfortable with who's staying in your house, and that if anything goes wrong, you'll be taken care of.
All right, so that's interesting. That's the first time I've heard that term, internet strangers. So,
We're internet strangers right here. We're interacting on the internet, although I know you, but yeah, it happens all the time.
and so I'm sure there's a lot of horror stories and things that have kind of that drove you to kind of create this solution. Were you experiencing this as just from knowing other folks that had properties that were having bad experiences?
Yeah, it wasn't even just that they were having bad experiences. They were afraid of the experiences, so they'd never joined the market. And so really the biggest need I saw in the travel industry was that people would buy a second home. And you know how hard it is to buy a first home. And then you buy a second home. So clearly you're sophisticated somehow. Maybe not the smartest person in the world, but you've done a few things right to have two homes. And then people I really respected, like my boss when I was an analyst at a consulting firm, like they would own the second home and they'd only use it for 48 weeks of the year. The rest of the time it was just empty. And I thought, this is the biggest waste. How can you be so silly and have your family's most valuable asset or second most valuable asset, have it just sit empty? And it has value. People want to stay. And it just didn't make sense to me. But then, in business school, I did an entrepreneurship summer school where I interviewed hundreds of homeowners, and I asked them, like, okay, I get that you don't rent, you told me that, but what happens when you're not in your house? And it was really interesting because they would come back and they, I would say, my friends say, my nieces and nephews stay. I'll donate a week to the auction. People from my church stay. So they were letting people that they tried that. Well, you can monetize this asset, this home. You can monetize it if somehow you trust who comes into your house, and that's the foundation. This is why I started Safely, so sophisticated people could at least monetize their home.
Okay, and so that's kind of the premise of the starting point. So let us tell us how you guys can help with getting us comfortable with being protected when we have internet strangers coming into our homes.
Right. And we kind of narrowed this down to two needs. First, who's staying in my house? You want to feel comfortable with that. And then second, what happens when something goes wrong? So to answer the question of who's staying in my house, we verify the guest's identity. We check for felonies, we check sex offender lists. We've become a credit reporting agency for the sharing economy. So we can use data about how a guest behaved before to help you decide if you're going to let this guest come into your house. So we can look at who they are, how they book, like what booking site they use, what's the length of stay, the advanced booking window, how close the home is to their primary home, and then we look at where they stay, and we can predict or identify the 14% of guests who are causing 70% of the bad stays. And then our job is we work with property managers, with investors, with homeowners, and we help them decide, what do you want to do? Do you want to turn this down? Well, if you turn this person down, you lost the revenue. So maybe we want to charge a damage deposit, or maybe we call them a few times, or maybe you just bring cookies every night and or change a filter or something, just so they know that you're around and you care. And um, and and so we help with that. The second piece, though, is, well, what happens when something goes wrong? And we're just not seeing that homeowners are protected in the way they think they are. There are two ways of getting insurance. One is you have your homeowner's policy, but your homeowner's policy covers your home when it's empty, when you're there, when your friends stay for free. But once you run a business in that house, you need the business insurance to do that. And we built a program that's going to ensure the whole reservation, no deductibles. So the first dollar is covered up to $1 million of damage to the home structure, its contents, and bodily injury. So really, if it's tied to the guest's liability, the homeowner's liability, a manager's liability, it's going to be covered by this program. And so that's what we built. We distribute it through the booking site. So if you use a property management software system, we've probably integrated with your software system already. So we can just be part of any reservation, a direct booking, Airbnb booking, Verbo booking. All of this comes to your master calendar, where we screen the guests and instantly underwrite the reservation.
Okay, cool. I think we had a little bit of an audio issue a few minutes back. I think it's corrected now, but let me know, guys, if it's still an issue, and we'll see what we can do here. But I think we just had a couple seconds here where we had some bad internet connection, but I think we're good now. But so the interesting part. So when you have guests that are coming in, you guys provide the ability to kind of screen and vet those guests. Walk us through a little bit how that works. What's the
Yeah.
logistics of that look like?
So we do need the guest name, address, and date of birth. Date of birth is just not collected by many of the booking sites. So what happens is we kick off an email or an SMS to the guest asking them to complete what we call a virtual check-in. So they'll take a picture of their driver's license, their passport, and from there we have the information. We can run a search for felonies and sex offenders. Those are the only two things we look for: the worst crimes, the felonies, and then sex offender status, because local jurisdictions, homeowner associations are you really asking for that, especially in some parts of the country. And so that's the process. It does require interaction with the guest.
Okay. So whether I'm taking a booking from Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, or a direct booking really doesn't matter. Once we engage with that communication, we're gonna now. Is it folks on your team that handle that interaction, or how does that part work?
Yeah, it's as automated as it can be. And then if the guest has questions, they're likely coming to us. The email, SMS is generated by us on our customer's behalf. And then we have a direct connection to the databases and the service providers that help with these checks. So often we'll marshal it through because we understand the process really well.
All right, and then so you run what you need to run, and you alert the host of the property if there's an issue, or kind of what's the next thing that occurs.
Exact. Yeah, and we talk to our property managers and we let them know, and then it's their decision or their homeowner's decision. Like, what do I want to do with it? If it doesn't matter, it's a low season. You want this revenue. This is a guest who did something a little while ago. You don't care. That's fine. If it's high season and you're in maybe a high risk area, you already got a fine from your homeowners association. You might say, I got to turn this down. So we'll help turn that guest down in a way that's compliant with the Fair Credit Reporting Act and the Fair Housing Act. So there are ways of turning a guest down that are completely legal. Um, Bad guests, people who destroy homes, are not a protected class in the U.S., and therefore we can say, no, this house is not for you because you destroyed this last one you were in.
And so you check the sex offender list, and what was the other thing you checked for?
We check for felonies in the United States.
Felonies. And then
Mm.
so how do you know if they've had like a bad experience with another property and trashed it, and I mean, where do you find that out at?
Right. So right now, our second product is insurance, and with no deductible, it means we see the first dollar of damage in most of our partners. We've insured about 4 million nights so far, so it's smaller than a big booking site, but still, we're starting to get a universe of guests who, when we see these insurance claims, most bad stays
I
have
see.
some
Yeah.
damage of some sort, and so we're
Mm.
able to use that data and know who's doing a good job and who's doing a bad job. In time, we're going to expand beyond. We're going to get this data for reservations we haven't even insured, and so we're working on that right now. It's this bad guest database comes from guests we've interacted with already and we've insured.
Okay, and I know you guys are across the United States. Are you global as well? Are you in other countries?
Yeah, yes and no. Right now, we're in the U.S. All of our business is in the United States. That said, in December, we became what's called a cover holder of Lloyd's of London, and what that means is we can represent any Lloyd's insurance agency, and this product is going to be accepted almost everywhere globally. Not North Korea, not Cuba, a few other places, but in general, like this product is accepted globally. And so we opened an office in Amsterdam, and so we're close to getting our Dutch license. We think we're shooting for end of October to launch there. That Dutch license, our product's already accepted, but now our needs to be licensed in the countries where we operate. And so we're probably 5 6 weeks away from getting that Dutch license. That will then passport to the rest of the European Union, and we have two people right now in Amsterdam, and of course we'll build up that team once we're operational.
Okay. All right. So there's a sex offender list, check for felonies, check your blacklist for bad actors. Is there any other check besides those three?
I know that's it. I mean, we don't
Okay.
want to. They're prepaying for the reservation. We don't want to
Hmm.
check their credit history. It really is what matters to our communities and to our homeowners, and that's what matters.
Is there an option to do any additional deeper dives, or that's pretty straightforward? You have that, and you can if there's either a red flag or there's not, and you can make a decision based on that.
Yeah, that's correct. Now we do have our risk score that takes those other like booking behavior into account, and where they're staying, the time of year, what other events are going on in that geography. So that can come into play. But in terms of being more invasive, we're not seeing that to be predictive of much. But also, it's hard to get data. I mean, government data, criminal data is really messy, and so it does take trained humans to look at this and you make sure that we're using the data in the right way. So that's about what we do.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, you have any statistics of like how many, red flags you get when you've done this process?
Yeah, I mean, so I can talk about insurance claims. About 5.2% of reservations have a claim of some sort. Now, that could be soiled linens, it could be scratched floors, or it could be a massive bodily injury, a kitchen fire, things like that. So all over the spectrum, but about 5.2% of reservations have a claim. Uh, what we're seeing there is it's almost broken down into about a third, a third, a third, meaning a third of these claims, so say about 1.5%, something like that, is going to be what we call vacation brain. And these are people who just turn their brain off when they come into your house. They might be very successful in real life, but somehow they come into your house and their just brain turns off. Their brain just turns off, and they leave the stove on. They pull the handle off of the shower. They don't mean to do it, but they just forget how to do things. And so we call it vacation brain for about a third of them. Like they're not negligent, but they're not competent either, but they're right in the middle. And absolutely, we pay for this. There's the other one where it's purely accidental. Insurance is meant to cover things that are accidental. But then there's a third where this is intentional. So about 1.5% of reservations, and it varies by geography and type of home, but 1.5% are people doing things like they destroyed something and they didn't fix it. They didn't They snuck a few extra people in. They brought a dog in, and then no, you're not a pet friendly home. They did all the things that you've seen. You every Monday when you go and they check out and you go clean up, and so it's about a third, a third, a third. So we do see bad stays, but again, it's not a big part of your business, but it's one that needs to be managed a little bit better.
Sure. And then so how does the logistics of the insurance policy work? So you have a guest that books, they stay at the property. Are they paying during their stay for that coverage, or is the host paying for it?
Yeah, it's the guest. And I'll walk you through the process. And I'm assuming you use one of the property management software systems we've integrated with, whether it's HostAway, Hostfully, Guesty, Track, any of those. So we're already integrated. Process is pretty simple. Our team meets with you and you decide, I want $100,000 of coverage, or I want 1 million, or I just need $10,000, whatever is right. We have the different limits available. And then we have an onboarding team. We help make sure that your listing discloses the fees in a good way, explains what this is, so people you should disclose if you're doing screening on the guest, or if they're paying for an insurance program.
Just a quick
But
question though. So if I'm just starting out and I have one or two listings and I'm only on Airbnb, I'm not on a channel manager yet. Are you able to work with those folks?
we're really close to that. We're working on a technical integration with one of our partners so that we can see those reservations. We'll
Okay,
absolutely work with you. It's just a little bit harder because we have to get your reservation so we know what to insure. And so
got it.
we need to get them ahead of time. Insurance doesn't work when you buy it after the guest has left. We really do need to know about the
Right.
reservation before the guest arrives. And so we're working to make that easier. We have a portal. You can log in, enter your reservations. Everything's fine. We can look at your iCal link and see where when you're booked. And so we'll work with you on it, but it's getting better. By the end of this year, it'll be a lot better.
Got it.
Um, but then you asked how do people pay, and how it works is we have a rate that we charge to our property managers, based on the limits and things like that. So there's a rate. They usually mark it up 20 or 30%, and the guest pays for the whole program. So the guest doesn't pay a damage deposit. They don't pay a damage waiver fee. Instead, they're paying this safely trust and safety fee, and it's going to cover the homeowner, the property manager, and the guest. And so they pay for the program. We just moved this fixed cost to cover the liability on these reservations that the homeowner or property manager would pay. Now it's an ancillary revenue stream that the guest pays for, and there's some extra margin on that.
And I'm assuming that the premium varies based on the size of the property and the size of the booking, or not really?
It's mostly based on the length of the stay and then the limits that we have. We understand the risk pretty well across all reservations, and so it's really based on how much liability is there based on how long the guest is in there.
So if you could just give me like an example so we can kind of have a baseline. So if I've got a lake house with a dock and a hot tub and it's $900 a night as a nightly rate and they're going to stay there for a week, what's the dollar amount for the premium for that?
It just went out for a second. Yeah, that cost, with that dock and the hot tub, you probably want a higher level. Docks are scary to us. Balconies are scary. Pools and hot tubs, like you gave all the magic words right there. But no, it doesn't matter. I mean, so we work with the property manager and we look at all of their homes, and it's you you probably want $500,000 of coverage for bodily injury on top of everything, and that would probably be around the 12 or $13 a night. So a 5 night stay would be, 65, $75, somewhere in that range. And then you could mark
Hmm.
that up to 99 or 109 that the guest would pay. We're seeing that if we're around 5% of the reservation rate or less, the guest has no problems paying. Like they know that there's going to be some sort of damage fee. That's just standard in our industry. They're not putting down $1,000, even though it might be refundable. They'd rather put down 109 non-refundable, and then not have to worry about a thing. And with
And
no
then
deductible on that program, then we're just covering the first dollar.
got it. And then so like in the reverse for like a one bedroom condo for 5 nights, what would that be like a couple dollars a night kind of thing or
Yeah, it'd be a little bit. It would be a little bit lower, probably closer to $6 a night because there's still things that are happening, and
Mhm.
just a regular. Anytime you have a guest come in, like they are causing some destruction. But yeah, we'd probably recommend a lower limit there, maybe not $500,000. That's a more contained. Your liability is more contained there, so maybe that's $100,000. Maybe you don't even need the bodily injury. We think you should have the bodily injury, but if you have a very low average daily rate, then maybe you stick to a program that might just cover $10,000 of damage to the structure and contents, and you again to kind of hit that target of 5%, 6% of your total booking value that the guest would be paying
Mhm.
on top of for this program.
Okay. And how does the claim process work? I'm sure you're familiar with the Airbnb Resolution Center and kind of how they have things designed. Um, do we have to notify the guest when we identify damaged items and then report that to you, or how does that work?
Yeah, we if that Airbnb process worked for property managers, we wouldn't be in business, but it's not. So we're not too worried there. Um, yeah, with Airbnb, you have to ask the guest to pay for something. They get mad and then they leave bad reviews. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't like it when you tell me I soiled your sheets, and we have a lot of soiled sheets, and like that's not a pleasant conversation. So we
Well,
don't
and the
have.
other thing too, a lot of hosts and a lot of property managers, for that reason, don't use the resolution center because they'd rather get a better review and not upset the guest over something that might be $100, and they just
Right,
take it on the chin as a cost of doing business, right? So
right.
yeah.
That doesn't help anyone. I know the homeowners. If you're a property manager, I know a lot of people here you manage their own homes, but if you're managing other people's homes, the homeowner thinks you're getting rich on your 20%. Like you're just rolling in money, and like you should pay for all this stuff because you let the guests into my house who then ruined the sheets or whatever. And that's not fair. Like this money, like there needs to be a separate pool of money to pay for this. And so it's really important to us that you don't have to go have the guest admit that they did the damage. Um, One of the rules we have, though, is that if you have a reservation, we're going to insure it. So you turn a home on, and we just know if there's a reservation, we're going to insure it. That way, we don't need to absolutely prove that one guest did it versus another guest who did it because we covered all your guests. So if it happened, it happened. And so
Hmm.
that's an important distinction. But we don't want you to go after the guest and make them mad. Um, we also can't go after the guest because the guest is a named insured, and an insurance company can't insure someone but then also make them pay for it. So it's a weird situation to be in because there are some bad guests out there that we want to go after, and we can't. But other than keep that information and make sure they don't do it again.
Hmm.
Um, but then yeah, the question about a claim is you don't talk to the guest, and then you file a claim with us. In May, 93% of our claims were paid within 1 business day. So that's another big difference with any insurance company like in the world that we know that you're working a frantic pace where a guest leaves in the morning, another guest arrives later. You're floating a lot of money to make this business possible from the off season to the regular your high season. And so you just need to be paid really quickly. And so we've gotten really good. We brought all of our claims handling in-house. And so if it's not a complicated claim, we're going to pay right away. There is an exception, and if there's bodily injury, well, it's usually the guest who's paying hospital bills and things like that. So we do need to interact with a guest for like bodily injury claims because they're the only ones, like they're probably suing you, and so they need to be communicative, and so we work with them there, but otherwise we don't. If something's stolen and it's above a certain value, we will ask for a police report. because like how do you prove that there was something there and now it's not there? So we do ask for a police report in that situation, but still you don't need to go after the guest for these.
But I'm assuming that you still, ask for the typical pictures, estimates of the damage. You're still requiring that type of documentation, correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
We need a picture that's close, a picture that's far away of the things that are damaged, just to see kind of the scope of the damage. And then we need to see a receipt or just a listing of a similar item. So
Hmm.
you don't need to buy it, but we need to see what you think this item is worth. A sofa, you find something on Amazon or you find something somewhere else, let us see it. Our adjusting team will look at it and say, yeah, that looks about right. That should be about what it's worth. And then you don't actually have to buy it. You might want to get a more expensive one, and that's fine. Or you might want to get a cheaper one. Again, that's fine. So that's the process. Pictures, and then a receipt or a similar item listed for sale.
And so it's good that you touched on the turnaround time. So, we had one of our 5 bedroom houses in East Atlanta have a grease fire in the kitchen, and this was a recently rehab property, stainless steel hood and brand new kitchen cabinets. And this guest brought in a what they called a private chef, which obviously didn't know what they were doing, and caused this huge smoke. Didn't really, thank God the house didn't catch on fire, but it caused a mess in that part of the kitchen. And so, as you can imagine, a lot of times, we want to make sure we can get things back up and running as quickly as possible to generate revenue. And so we got, an estimate from the contractor, and it kind of took a while to get that resolved before we could get it fixed. So in under your coverage, once we submit that estimate and the pictures, you're able to within a day or two cover that for us. Is that how it works?
Yeah, and there are exceptions. That's starting to sound like a slightly more complicated claim. I
Yeah.
mean,
Hmm.
clearly, multiple receipts, but pretty much if we can tie it to a guest caused event or an event caused by the rental, it's not wear and tear, which clearly this wasn't. And then the replacement costs or the fixing costs you align with what would be expected from that damage, then we're ready to move pretty quickly. Uh, Above certain levels, we do need a few levels of approval with our underwriters, so that could take a few extra days. But again, with the information there, we're able to move really fast.
How are you guys different from a proper or an insurance carrier that basically covers the entire homeowner's policy in addition to short-term rentals? How are you guys different from that?
Yeah, and I can't speak 100% about all the ins and outs of various policies, but what's really unique about our policy is we're on when you need us on, and then off when you don't need us. So if you have low occupancy, uh, you don't need us a lot. If you have high occupancy, you need us a lot. So an annual program is going to cover every single day. You're paying for every single day to have a guest in your house, and sometimes that's a good value, but it's not always right size. So we're just on when you need us, off when you don't. The other thing is anytime you get an annual program, the deductibles are high. Every time you buy homeowners policy, auto policy, you pay a little bit less in premium if you raise that deductible. Well, once you raise the deductible to $1,500 or so, it's not covering the damage, the everyday damage that
Yeah.
you're seeing that you still need to recover from the guest. So it's doing a great job of covering your liability, the kitchen fires, things like that. Um, but it's not covering all the little stuff that you're either going to be like we're going back to the same problem. Are you going to go after the guest to pay for it? Are you going to try to get Airbnb's program to cover it? Are you going to ask your homeowner to pay for it? Are you going to pay for it yourself? And with a high deductible, you just don't have that option. And our program is just meant to be used. We want claims. In fact, our customer happiness team will bother you if you're not filing claims. It's like, hey, Rich, let me tell you how this works. Like you're allowed to file claims. This isn't like a real homeowners policy where once you file a claim, like the next year your premium is going to go up so high that what's the point of you in filing a claim? No, we expect good use of our program average use, like not too aggressive, but also not zero. We offer the most value when you use this as a way to recover the damage that we know is going to take place during these rentals.
All right. And we just had a question, and maybe to clarify, they're asking, is there a deductible? And I'm pretty sure you said there's not, right? So,
Right, that is an option you have, no deductible or $100 deductible, and you'll save a little bit with a $100 deductible. That said, our smallest claim that we've ever paid was about $1.33, which I wouldn't have filed if it was me, but whatever. It came in and we took care of it. A wine glass broke. It was
oh, wow.
one wine glass in a six wine glass set from IKEA. So it was like an $8 six wine glass set. They didn't charge us for all six. They're like one of them. That was about $1.33. We paid more to wire the money than it cost, but that's okay. And then of course all the way up to the limits on some of our programs.
Hmm. Okay, cool. And so, we touched on the hot tubs and the swimming pools and the docks. Is there different type of liability coverage, or is it just a matter of identifying the correct amount to use for that?
Yeah, our liability covers bodily injury, and so if it happens in the pool or other places, it to us it's the same. So when you're insuring so many reservations, some are going to be riskier than others, but we really think the best way is to look at kind of the average. So we don't inspect every single home. Instead, we partner with people who are managing arm's length transactions, reservations, and we understand that risk well enough, and then we're able to insure you a whole portfolio of homes.
All right. And so, what about bed bugs?
Yeah, when you have a liability program with us covering the bodily injury, we're also going to cover bed bugs, and there is a separate rider on our program. But yeah, it's such a pain. You get bed bugs, and it's so expensive to get them removed, but you have to immediately, otherwise you lose all this future revenue. So just it was probably only a few months ago that we added this bed bug program because people want it, and so yeah, it's there.
Okay. And then, just another clarification. So the vetting in the beginning is just really a part of the insurance program that you guys provide, or is that kind of a separate deal that is a separate cost item for the host or the owner?
No, it's part of our program because they go hand in hand. You can't insure things without the right data. And now it depends. Like our customers, our property managers decide how to use the data, but really to understand the risk of the reservation, I think is essential to securing that you everyone in that rental. So it's just part of our program. And if it's too invasive for some of our property managers, it doesn't fit their business model, they don't have to do it. But we make that part of our program.
Okay, very cool. So I've had an incident that happened recently that I'm just curious, kind of what your take would be on. So we have a property that's kind of hard to turn around, and we had visitors of the guest that basically damaged the fence to the next door neighbor as they were backing in and out and leaving. It was actually a flower pot that was blocking the fence. That was supposedly a very expensive flower pot, according to my neighbor. Anyway, the um, the guest kind of pawned it off on the friend. The friend kind of said, "Well, I'll go to Home Depot and buy a $50 plastic pot. You're good." But it was like this. It was this terracotta thing. It was very, whatever. It was some money. And so, what with that instance, I can't do anything with the Airbnb Resolution Center, for example, because it's not my property. It's my neighbor's property. Yes, the guest was responsible for the damage, but how does that work if I had your insurance?
Yeah, I think I'd have a similar answer there, and that is we have three named insureds: the homeowner, a manager of the house, and then the guest. And so if the damage didn't happen to to one of the other two parties, the homeowner or the property manager, then they just have no insurable interest in this. Instead, it's go after the guest in small claims court, unfortunately. Now, if the liability was tied to you, for example, if your house starts on fire and it burns your neighbor's home down, that's now
Hmm.
your liability as the homeowner, and so
Yeah.
then that would be covered, because that was your liability and it spread to your neighbor. But I
Hmm.
think intentional damage by the guest to someone who's not insured would likely not be covered. I'd have to check with the claims team, but I think for the same reason Airbnb wouldn't cover it, we also wouldn't.
Got it. Okay. Um, are there any other things that are unique to kind of what we do, like the bed bug coverage? Are there other items that you can mention that we haven't already talked about?
Um, one thing that's maybe surprised me is how important claims are. I know that sounds silly, but our product is paying claims. And so when we invest in new initiatives, it's about paying claims. How can we pay them better? How can we be more accurate? The volume is very high. We'll do 3,000 claims this month that will pay out. A really solid team of licensed people, but we're always trying to innovate. How do we get the money back faster? And so that's really just a big part of every roadmap technology development discussion is about how do we better perform at insurance claims. Other than that, I think new innovations are getting a more direct channel to Airbnb and Verbo. So in like people managing one, two, or three homes are better served by us, and I think we'll make progress through the rest of the year on that and make it a more um, a more automated process and a lot easier to make sure every reservation is insured. So those are kind of our two goals. Like always make improvements on the claims processing, and then make it easier for smaller property managers and owners.
Okay, yeah, I know a lot of us that have been doing this for a while. There's always a hesitation. You're encouraged to try to get direct bookings and test out new platforms, but there's always a hesitation for the what if and the what happens. And so to kind of have that box checked, I think is tremendous in being able to explore other options like that. So it makes
Yeah, I
sense.
agree, and that's why we're not worried. Even if Verbo comes out with the best insurance policy ever, we see that once a property manager has been in market for 4 or 5 years, they're getting 40% of their reservations directly, not through the booking
Hmm.
channels, and they're saving their 16%. And they have control over the money, they have control over the guest experience a lot more when they can take a direct booking. So, I mean, every market's different, but if you're outside of a major urban area and you do a good job of remarketing to your guests after they leave, we're seeing we're seeing just a lot of traction with direct bookings from the more mature managers.
Definitely, definitely. So we've got a couple questions coming in.
Yeah.
So, is there a startup or an admin fee?
No, I hate those. It's like, I mean, we'll charge you for what you use, but there's no startup or setup fee. Our program's pretty unique. There's a contract, but you can stop whenever you want. The only thing we ask is if a guest came through, made a reservation, and they thought they purchased insurance, we've got to keep an insurance policy on that program because we actually like the guest saw that they were buying insurance. So you can stop, but there might be a residual of reservations over the coming months that are going to be insured. And we'd work with you on that if for some reason you were to leave. But no, we we just can't understand why some vendors charge a setup fee when you're supposed to decrease friction for people to buy your product, not increase friction. So there's no startup, no setup fee, no cancellation fee.
Okay, perfect. And then, what other separate riders are there besides bed bugs? What are the typical expenses?
Yeah, we Yeah, right now it's the bed bugs. We're working on an event insurance rider. So if someone wants to have a wedding at your house or a cocktail party for their office or something like that, we're working on special events because it's happening and it does fall outside of the scope of what we're doing. You wouldn't want to buy insurance for just a regular stay and all of a sudden like there's a film production there and now your program is subsidizing a movie or is subsidizing a wedding or something like that. um, and that's gonna, we don't know the pricing yet. That's gonna be, that's gonna be a wide range of I mean, depending on the event, that's gonna have different costs. Um, but in general, that's about where we are. We're looking at loss of income. We don't have much on that yet, and that's, I think, an area where we could do better. So if you do have the bed bugs or you do have that kitchen fire and you're shut down for a little bit, well, you're losing some money, and so we're working on a program there.
Cool. All right, these are some great questions. So the next one is: does the guest have the option to not buy the insurance?
Yeah, in general, no. Uh, Part of what makes the program work is every reservation is going to be insured. That means we can be a little less picky about making sure it's a specific guest who caused the damage, and the guest is used to paying a damage deposit instead. That said, sometimes you get these very fickle guests or ones where you want the deal to happen, and so we'll work with you on that. I mean, for stays that are over 60 days or 30 days, sometimes the cost for insurance can get expensive, and the liability just changes a little bit, and so we will like let those guests skip out of insurance for longer term stays. But really, if this starts to impact your business, and especially if it's just a one-off reservation, we'll work with you. But there's no in the booking channel, there's no way of opting out of it. It's just a fee, just like your cleaning fee. But if you're having business issues with it, like you could make more money because we're not there for a certain reservation, we'd love to talk to you and make sure that it's for a legitimate reason, and then we'll work with you.
Okay, I mean, just based after going over the numbers, I don't think it's a significant dollar amount that somebody would want to bicker over it, just in general. So
Exactly. In general, we're not seeing this, but I mean, you deal with your guests. Everyone's special in a certain way, and just don't want to do something. And again, we're here to help your business and not hurt it. And we just have to make sure that the integrity of the insurance program stays there, so it's not cherry picking or things like that. But if there are areas where we're not helping your business, well, that's not why we're here.
okay, got it. Awesome. All right. Before we go, any more last minute questions? If there are, throw them in the comments for us. Andrew, I really appreciate you taking the time today. This has been very informative for us.
Rich, thank
And
you.
we have a lot of our clients that are in the BNB investing group, or that are just starting out. It's kind of good to know that you have this out there as an option to kind of give you some additional protection. We do have one more question here. So in general, if we had insurance through you, we would not use Airbnb Resolution Center again.
100% correct. And that's my dream. You like focus on more important stuff. Don't deal with that. That's
Yeah, it
correct.
does burn up a lot of time, and in a lot of cases, you may not get good results too. So for sure. All right. Well, Andrew, any last minute things that you want to touch on?
Well, I want to tell you maybe two of our craziest claims because I know everyone here has seen more than you'd like to see. I mean, we have so many, but I'll talk about two. One was a smaller one, but it could have been catastrophic. It was in Tahoe, and it snowed a lot. The guest was drinking a good amount, and he went up on top of the roof with the heavy snow and skied down the roof, hit a power transformer, and so knocked out the power in four neighboring units.
Oh my
He doesn't
goodness.
remember it at all. He wasn't hurt at all. We probably paid out $1,500, $2,000, not a lot. So there's some damage to the transformer, and then we have to buy some neighbors, like we have to buy groceries for some of the neighbors, and that was it. But that could have been catastrophic, especially for the skier, and that fortunately ended up just fine for everyone. I mean, look, we're all on vacation. We all have maybe more fun than we should,
Oh,
but that's
wow.
a little too much fun. And then the other,
Absolutely.
in general, we don't cover acts of nature, hurricanes, tornadoes, but in this case, I think it was in Montana, and there's a house that had a special like contraption to keep the bears from coming into the house. And so normally we wouldn't cover a bear attacking your house, but the guest didn't set the contraption up in the right way when they left for the day. So the bear came in and just destroyed the whole house and just destroyed the
Wow.
furniture, destroyed everything. But this was due to the guest's liability because they didn't like there were certain rules, they didn't follow them. And so this was one of the acts of nature, a bear who just went crazy in a house and just destroyed everything. But anyway, I mean, you're in this business long enough, you're gonna see things that you wish you hadn't seen, and you
Yeah,
just move along.
I'll tell you one of my friends, thankfully it wasn't my property, but one of my buddies that does this in Ohio, but went live with a property, and the very first guest was a YouTuber that basically broadcast out a party for $5 a head on Instagram, and so they had like 60 or 70 people show up at this log cabin and just basically trashed it, completely trashed it. And so,
Uh,
yeah, and it's things like that are difficult to really truly vet until they happen. And so that to have the very first guest be the one that does that, just not a good situation. But if you've got coverage like what you guys provide, then you just keep it moving, get everything fixed, and
yep.
and keep it moving. So that's good to know.
Uh,
So awesome. So thanks again, Andrew. Really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you, Rich.
And I'd love to have you guys back at some future date as well. And as we do a little bit of a deeper dive. But for those of you interested in learning more about BNB Investing Group and how we help investors get started with a scalable business, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook Messenger, and we can schedule a quick strategy call and see if this is something that you are a good fit for or not. Um, let's see here. One last comment, Rich. I just wanted to say your questions have been excellent. They really helped us to learn about the platform. Thanks. Awesome. Thank you so much for the positive feedback there. And Andrew, thanks again, buddy. I really appreciate you
Thank you,
coming on.
Rich.
All right.
Absolutely.
Take care. Take care.